She's on her way. She got stuck in the mix master.
Okay. Someone is.
Oh, that's me. Rep Garibay, can you do a quick sound check with me? Good morning.
Representative Heffernan's here also.
You're the,
I'm always at the end. It's fine.
it's the S. My husband's last name starts with a Z, I understand. Representative Garibay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
press.
Good morning, all, and we will open today's public hearing, this being Tuesday, March 10th, of public hearing of the Commerce Committee, of which we will be hearing our last 3 bills. And if there are remarks from the co-chair, Representative Meskers?
I'm on my best behavior today. No.
That was a birthday wish. Senator Martin and Representative Kite.
Following my good chair's lead, I'm also on my best behavior and just no remarks.
Thank you, Madam. Seeing no other comments, we would like to invite our first speaker. It's Paul Amarone, representing CBIA. Are you with us, Paul?
Good morning, Senator Hartley, Representative Meskers, Senator Martin, Representative Aniskovic, and members of the Commerce Committee. My name is Paul Amarone. I'm a Senior Policy Director for Job Growth and Manufacturing at the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of Senate Bill 417, which tasks the DECD with developing a plan to establish an artificial intelligence small business program. As we all know and see, AI is rapidly becoming a foundational technology across the modern economy. Businesses are increasingly using AI tools to automate routine tasks, analyze complex data, improve operational efficiency, and enhance customer experiences. While large corporations often have the internal expertise and capital to adopt these technologies, many small and mid-sized businesses face real barriers, including limited technology expertise, limited capital, and uncertainty about how to effectively implement AI solutions. SB 417 takes a thoughtful first step by working with DECD to develop a strategic plan before launching a full program. This approach allows the state to engage with businesses, academic institutions, and technology leaders to determine what types of support would be most effective in helping small businesses adopt AI tools. As policymakers consider how to structure such program, we strongly encourage the committee to look no further than Connecticut's Manufacturing Innovation Fund as a model. Since its creation, the MIF has invested more than $100 million in programs that help manufacturers adopt new technologies, strengthen workforce pipelines, and improve competitiveness. Programs supported through the fund have helped hundreds of companies modernize operations, leverage private investment, and create and retain more than 1,500 jobs. A similar framework for AI can include technology adoption grants or vouchers for small businesses, partnerships with universities and research institutions, workforce training programs to help employees how to learn how to work with AI-enabled technologies, and very clear performance metrics to measure productivity gains, ROI, and economic impact. Just as the MIF helped modernize Connecticut's manufacturing sector, a well-designed AI program could help businesses across many industries improve productivity, remain competitive, and grow in an increasingly technology-driven economy. We encourage the committee to support the bill and consider using the successful structure of the MIF as a blueprint. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Paul, and also for your work on this initiative. So we're talking about small and medium-sized businesses, 100 and less. Is that the demographic?
Yeah, absolutely. CBIA. Just naturally, just turn it off. The vast majority of CBIA membership is made up of 100 employees or less, 99% actually. So we increasingly hear from these small businesses that in order to keep up in the modern economy, you need to have some sort of AI implementation in your operations. And these are the businesses that we're hearing from, 100 employees or less, who are struggling to keep up with the bigger guys who do have the capital and the connections to implement AI, and the small guys are kind of left out.
Can you just speak to us about the supply chain and the necessity for them to be front and center with technology, cyber as well, in order to be certified? And what percentage or demographic of our Connecticut small businesses are actually certified to be defense on the defense supply chain?
So I'll start with the second part. I'm not sure off the top of my head of which percentage, but a significant portion of our supply chain are made up of small manufacturers that then go up to the EBs and to the Sikorskis and to the Pratt and Whitneys. And to your first point, can you just repeat the first part of that question again?
Well, I wanted to understand the universe that we're trying to target, that is the small and medium, and how they right now are dealing with the requirements for being certified to be on that supply chain.
Yeah, so digitization is something that a lot of small and medium-sized companies across the board are trying to take things from hard copy to digitization because it's required by some of the contracts that they have with bigger defense contractors. So something like this would then allow smaller to medium-sized businesses, let's use manufacturers for example, who are making parts for the Black Hawk helicopter. And in order for them to continuously be competitive for those contracts and to make those parts in their small manufacturing facility, they would need to be fully digitized. Now, I don't know the exact by what date, but it's increasingly an issue, and I know that our chief manufacturing officer talks about the efforts through the Manufacturing Innovation Fund to help smaller and medium-sized companies digitize. So this would go outside of just manufacturers. This would be across the board for small businesses, where the MIF is really just specific for manufacturing.
So to that point, we're always very fastidious about layering, building, empires or agencies and so forth, when in fact it's about getting a job done. Why wouldn't MIF be able to expand to accommodate this?
So MIF is specifically for just manufacturing, and while they do have opportunities for advanced technology and digitization, those would be reserved for companies that are classified as manufacturers. This study, we hope to find, what sectors outside of manufacturing are using AI. You talk about healthcare, you talk about the accounting industry, all sectors that are looking to keep up with the bigger companies. So this would kind of open the door outside of manufacturing, but we have a blueprint with the MIF right now that has worked really well and has really had a great return on investment. I believe it's several dollars for every $1 invested that goes back into the economy. So we see this as an opportunity. AI is not going anywhere. It's only increasing. And more folks are learning that in order to keep up with their operations and expand, they need to implement it. But they can't necessarily do that because they don't know where to go. And this study hopefully can provide us more information on where they can go and what opportunities are out there for them.
No, I understand that MIF is specific to manufacturing. My question was, do we expand that umbrella to include manufacturing, what we're doing with the voucher programs and the like, and also AI, because it is now definitely going to be embedded in really everything that every business does. And it does not matter really what specialty they're in: fintech, insurance, manufacturing, education, healthcare. It's going to span the horizon. The other important thing is from a skilled workforce point of view, that we as a state continue to be that place that has the skilled resources in human resources in order to keep our edge, quite frankly, in the market. So there's a lot to talk about with regard to this subject. The study is the right way to begin. I am concerned about the fact how fast the clock is moving on this, and so this study would also have to be, I think, fast-tracked in order to begin to implement any procedures going forward. I'd like to just interrupt for a minute to welcome a very special group that's just walked into the room, and this is Mayor Paderewski from the city of Waterbury, I believe, is with us, and his team. And this is the Mayor's Advisory Board. These are students from all of Waterbury's high schools who meet on a regular basis to give input to the mayor on things in their community, in their schools, and to become a part very early on of civic engagement. So thank you, Mayor Paderewski, for being with us, and also for putting together this elite group of students. So welcome. And Representative Reyes, I think, is with us, and also the mayor's advisor, Nick, and is also Mr. Hatzi here? Yes. Well, welcome. And so with that, comments from my colleagues. Yes, Co-Chair Meskers.
Well, first, even though it's not my town, I do want to welcome you all here today. And I see Representative Reyes and, of course, my co-chair. So you keep the mayor, on his toes with your advisory work. She keeps me on my toes with her advisory work. So I want to know you both. I'm sure the mayor suffers your advice. I suffer my co-chair's advice. And it's your contribution is so important. So I welcome you here to the Capitol. Thank you very much. Back on the bill. So I want to thank you for helping us to formulate the ideas on the artificial intelligence. I guess there are two areas where I have concerns, and I don't know what we'll do in considering drafting, but I want to see what the incorporation between VTech and VOTech educational processes with artificial intelligence. And last year we engaged in a couple of conversations with the maker spaces. And I think when you think about retail and small manufacturing or prototypes and across artistic and manufacturing spectrum, I think we want to make sure that we think, and so I want to make sure DECD considers the scope of small businesses. And I want to emphasize that the message and intent of this, when you read in the press and you hear the conversations about artificial intelligence, it's always the worry of tomorrow and workforce replacement. It's always the worries about are we going too fast or too furious. And here, I think we're taking the opposite approach, which is there are a number of companies and small companies in Connecticut that run the risk of being left behind. And so our intent here is that if artificial intelligence is going to be the way forward, that our small businesses are given a competitive edge, and whether it's through the educational process, and that may be beyond the ECD's purview, but with the VTech and VOTech schools, I want to make sure that happens. With the maker spaces, which I know is in ECD's effort. And so I appreciate you coming forward and suggesting this. I think we'll have a good conversation in drafting, but I think we've highlighted some of our major concerns, and I just lend my strong support there. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Meskers. Yes, Representative Kite.
Yes, thank you. I just want to kind of echo the concern there about potential for job loss, because small businesses are together one of our largest employers in the state. So I hope this study will look at potential job losses and ways we can make up for those job losses, of retraining or other paths, career paths for those who will inevitably lose their jobs. And also appropriateness for AI in some markets. We've seen a rise in the mental health field, which I personally think is not a good idea. And also to make sure our artists and creatives are protected and are still able to practice their craft in a way that won't be impinged upon by AI. I think AI has a great potential, it's here to stay, and so I agree the study is the right way to approach it, but I just want to make sure we take that into account when we do this study.
Yeah, and if I may, Representative, we completely agree. The last thing we want is lost jobs. We see it as a way to enhance current jobs and provide employees with tools that make their jobs safer and more efficient and more timely. So I think, to your point, it's very prudent to start with a study. The last thing, especially with AI, the last thing we want to do is jump the gun and create something that we can't even handle. So we're happy to work with the committee and with DCD on seeing this through the correct way.
Thank you. Senator Rahman.
Senator Rahman, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here and thank you for testifying today. Good to have you. 80% U.S. population concerned about AI safety and data security. How you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it's a new concept, right? You know, you could look back to the Industrial Revolution, right? There was a lot of new processes. People went from using horses to cars, and there are a lot of questions about that. So it's a similar, it's just a more modern, I would say, situation. But everyone's using it. I'm sure a lot of the students here use it as well. I think it's very important for us to ensure that it's being used safely and responsibly. And that's why this is just a study to begin with, to find out the best ways to provide small businesses with support, financial support, knowledge support when it comes to utilizing AI. But that's the big piece, is the small businesses, they don't know necessarily where to go, but they know that they need AI. So how do they utilize AI in a safe and responsible manner that streamlines the current systems and services that they provide?
Secondly, I want to echo my colleagues about the job lost, people concerned. How you feel and what do you want to say? AFL-CIO, they have like 250,000 members in the state of Connecticut, and all areas working and representing diversity and inclusion. What do you think, and what do you want to say to those folks?
Yeah, well, listen, as I said earlier, we believe that AI is an employee enhancement tool. I'm just going to use an example of this. In the state of Ohio, they actually passed a couple years ago a bill that each state agency in Ohio uses AI to go through every single regulation that has ever been passed into law in the state, going hundreds of years back. That is nearly impossible for just a human to go through every single thing. But the important part of that is the staff that's utilizing it has a human review aspect. So it didn't take their jobs away. It enhanced their ability to look at ways to make state government more efficient and they've saved tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer dollars and labor time within the different agencies that are utilizing that tool, which is called Regulatory Explorer. Deloitte actually came up with it. So that's just an example of this enhancing the jobs, and a lot of it comes down to safety too. We want our employees, especially in manufacturing, to be in safe environments, and there are AI tools that can help create safer work environments for people.
I don't know you ever watch Terminal 1, Terminal 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the I will be back. You ever concerned about the AI, like something like that could be crash?
Can you repeat the question, please?
You know the Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, am I right? I don't know you ever watched that. What he said, I will be back, because the was crash, am I right? You ever concerned, say, maybe will be crashed, the AI, and could be the huge damage.
Great movie, first of all. But I would say that AI, it's not going anywhere, but it's important for us to ensure that people know how to use it and know how to implement in ways that support their workforce and support the products and services that they offer to their customers. If we don't do it that way, then that could happen, but we want to avoid that happening by doing this the right way.
Thank you so much. This question actually, my 7 years old, he's always changing my face. It's putting, look at you, So because kids love the AI and then easy to manipulate, am I right? This is why I'm saying make sure not backfiring us. But thank you. I appreciate your time in here. Good to see you. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. And just for the edification of the committee, one of the proposals that we have right now in our draft before us is, in fact, to require companies that would participate in this kind of a program, if we're modeling it after the MIF, where companies can apply and so forth, that they also have a plan for the upskilling and the reskilling of employees who would be affected by any changes by the adoption of AI. So we are not going to be incentivizing companies to be laying off and eliminating employees, but we are trying to reskill, upskill, to provide those opportunities going forward so that the company benefits and also the employees, the human resources piece of that. But there'll be much more in terms of refining these concepts. But you are absolutely right, and that is our approach right now, Senator. Representative Buckby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the testimony. I don't have any Terminator concerns. I mean, we all do in some regard, but I think we're good. No, I've had conversations with people recently about consultants who are getting billable hours now by submitting what they have to do and going for a walk while AI is doing the work for them. And I think that's proper utilization. These are people that are not high school students or 20-year-olds. This is people in their 60s who are learning to use this right away. So I think it's critical. My question with this and with DECD, I'm assuming they're behind the concept that you're bringing forward.
Of a study, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just curious why we need legislation to make the study to have them dive deeper into it. Why wouldn't they kind of take it by the, harness itself, so to speak?
Well, so I would say that the study ensures that the right players are at the table, business and industry, education, tech folks, to ensure that the work is actually being done. I think this gives us an avenue to then, in the off session, sit down and hash out exactly what this looks like further.
And that can't be done without legislation brought to them to do so?
I would say the legislation solidifies it more and gives us a process to have CBIA, education, healthcare at the table under an umbrella based on SB 417.
I'm not opposed to it by any means. It kind of gets to the point where you go, this is where we're going, this is where we're seeing. I would think they would take the the bull by the horn, so to speak, and start doing this on their own without coming to us to have to do that. I think they could put some of this together on their own without it being legislation. So I support it. I support the concept. I just don't know why we're here on this. I think it's something they could be doing on their own to do the study and then come back to us and say, this is what we found, this is what we'd like from the legislature, I think, at this point. That's all. Nothing against you on this. I think it's great. I would love to see CBIA do that. I'd love to see DECD do that. Let's let the organizations start, doing that on their own. And if they need help with that, AI could be a great help with that. But thank you for your testimony, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative, and I'll just direct your attention to the written testimony that was provided to us today by DECD. And I think that helps to answer why this committee wants to be lead and to try to keep it on track, because I think, as we talked about before, this is moving so fast. Thank you so much. I do appreciate your comments. Comments from other members of the committee. Seeing none, I want to thank you again, Paul, and look forward to working with you on this initiative. Much to be done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I would like to now invite Pete Myers, also from CBIA. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, everyone. Pete Myers here from CBIA. I'm the Senior Policy Director there. I've been thinking for the last 5 minutes to try to come up with a Terminator reference, so I'm sorry I couldn't come up with one. But I'm here today to issue CBIA's strong support for two very important bills to help the business community, specifically the small business community. I'm going to start by echoing our strong support for House Bill 5467. This would create within the office, within DECD, a dedicated concierge office to help businesses navigate the grant programs and loan programs, but also to be a front door into DECD. Now, this is learning from best practices, as businesses do all the time out in the real world. They look at what their competitors are doing, what their colleagues are doing, and say, how can we replicate that and do it better? In DEEP's 20 by 20 goals, the commissioner there created the Office of the Concierge to help small businesses and developers understand the permitting process within DEEP so they could call and help navigate the permit and really walk them all the way through the process. Our businesses love that. It has been incredibly helpful, and we believe has helped create multiple different projects across our state. Now, we would like to see that be replicated into the Office of DECD. We think by doing that, you will have businesses be able to come to DECD as a front door to help navigate a certain grant or loan program and to help increase the utilization of these programs by doing so. So we are strongly supportive of that. Other states have similar programs to this, and we think it's not only about being competitive with those states, but looking at our sister agencies within inside government and saying, okay, we're doing great in one segment, let's replicate this in another area. So strongly supportive of that. And then I will also briefly issue a strong letter of support for Senate Bill 418, which is another part of best practices looking at our neighboring state of Pennsylvania, or close neighboring state of Pennsylvania, who just recently passed what is called the SPEED program to help with their backlog of permits. Similar to what Connecticut has with the backlog, even though the DEEP has made a tremendous job in recent years to clear their backlog and improve permitting. So what this would do is it would allow third-party entities that are licensed by DEEP and have DEEP as the final oversight to issue certain permits. So this is having DEEP create a framework to examine that and really putting the onus on DEEP of what permits might be appropriate for that availability, what might not be. And I just want to wrap with, on 418, that this is already precedent in Connecticut. This committee heard last year about quite a bit from the great licensed environmental professionals of the state of Connecticut. We're looking at the Transfer Act, where DEEP already delegates some authority to mitigate spills and cleanups and sign off on that in DEEP's authority. This would be similar to that for certain permits that DEEP deems appropriate. We believe that that will help to make our state more competitive as we look at investment, as businesses look at investment in the state and in the region. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and I thank you all for this time.
Thank you very much for being with us, Pete. So you share with us on 418 the model in Pennsylvania. Are there any other states that do it, to your knowledge, besides Pennsylvania?
Hats off to Pennsylvania. They have done a tremendous job with this. Very different dynamic with how many permits they have and the size of the state, of course. But it's certainly something that Pennsylvania is taking the lead on. And I think this is something where we need to take a holistic look at how we can be better than not just match Pennsylvania's program, but be better than it. And I think we have the advantage that they went first. Now we've been able to look at that. It's still being rolled out, of course, but I think something we can look at. And I think something, part of that we've heard from talking to our sister agency in Pennsylvania is potentially looking at an expedited permitting fee to help streamline permits even faster. And that's something we can continue a conversation on in the future as well.
And how would this interface with the recent executive order that just came from the governor's desk about expediting permitting?
Yeah, and hats off to the governor on that executive order. We think it's another great step to streamline permitting in our state. So with that executive order, from my understanding, was focused on having the agencies set specific timelines. And you needed to meet those timelines on a permit review and getting the answer back. And if you didn't, the business would receive a refund for their permit. Not necessarily a yes or no from that, because we want to make sure it's proper approval of a permit, of course. But what this would do is it would allow DEEP to offload a certain amount of its work to a third-party entity, very similar to what they do with licensed environmental professionals, to help meet those timelines even faster. Get shovels in the ground even faster, creating more jobs on those projects, whether it's major energy projects, whether it's solar, natural gas, that type of work, or whether it's just redevelopment and development of more housing across our state, too.
And so with the LEP model, we have certain credentialing that is required. What would this require in terms of background?
Well, I think the first and foremost, we'd want to put that as part of this conversation with DEP for them to develop the framework of that. I would imagine a similar licensing and audit of review that DEEP currently has with the LEP program. There is licensing that you would have to go through in Pennsylvania, and I would imagine it being similar, but I don't want to speak for DEEP on what they'd exactly want to set. But we're more than happy to have a conversation on what's appropriate there.
Thank you. Representative Meskers.
Pete, I want to thank you for your testimony. I think you're spot on in the analysis. Subtly, there are two issues that came to mind to me as we work through the Transfer Act. I believe we have the order of 4,500 or 5,000 properties that are somewhere inside the Transfer Act. Additionally, in prior years, in a review with the State Historic Preservation Office, and I believe for Preservation Connecticut, we have something on the order of a warehouse recognition of about 2,000 mills in some state of disrepair or that could use rehab or repurposing. So I think we're going to be looking at things at Commerce Department where we create economic opportunity in the state. We're pouring money into brownfield remediation. We're looking at grayfield remediation. So we're dealing with 50 or 60 years of a backlog in economic development and resources, but the problems will in many cases be singular or solved within a 5 or 10 year time frame if we're lucky. So I think the other issue is to address the bottleneck by looking at the permitting. So I think we need to understand we're not trying to grow the state enormously to take care of backlogs in permitting. What we're trying to do is grow the job market that's going to result with the repurposing or with the repurposing of properties, with maybe the rebuilding of those mills. So I think if we get to a good place and continue to fund brownfields, what we want to do is make sure that there isn't a backlog in the permitting process. Not that we want to change how we do or the nature of the permits, but we want to improve the turnaround time. And finding the right qualified licensed practitioners like we're doing with the Transfer Act, I think that's where we go. And I think that's the only point that, we didn't highlight is we've got a backlog of properties to bring through the system, and this may help address that. So I think that's imperative when we think about this permitting issue. Thank you.
Absolutely, Representative. If I may, before any jobs can be created from any of this redevelopment, from these brownfield sites or any transfer act sites can really be completed, there's permits that need to be addressed and approved before any projects can start, before jobs can be hired, and clearing that backlog and that bottleneck there. And DEEP has done a tremendous job in recent years by helping permitting, whether it's online and payment online and matters like that. But giving them additional resources for certain permits to be able to streamline that, we think is imperative, not only to improve permitting in Connecticut, in which we want to be as good as possible, but we have to look, when investment's happening, businesses are looking at a region. Pennsylvania's in the Northeast, they're looking at what are they doing there. It can easily make an investment in Harrisburg as they can make an investment in Waterbury. So we want to make sure Waterbury is as attractive as possible. And when we have permitting streamlined like that, where the timeline can be shorter, it's a great place to go.
Thank you very much. No further questions for you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can you connect this to our initiatives and our challenge, quite frankly, with regard to the housing crisis?
Well, absolutely, certainly. So I believe both of these bills would help to address that. So small business concierge, if you're a small developer or a medium-sized developer and you're looking to try to understand what programs DECD might have or what opportunities, whether it's a grant they currently have or DECD can help point you in the right direction, we think that's an imperative first step to help develop more housing, whether it's affordable housing, mixed-use housing, just regular individual homes. We think that would be important. But also the permitting legislation, we're looking at developments that are being redeveloped, these brownfield sites, redeveloping mills into housing and some beautiful housing, making sure that those those apartments can be developed as fast as possible and safely as possible is imperative. So we look at apply for a permit, and if the timeline's going to take 18 months to go along with the project, you're in danger of losing your financing for that site. Not a lot of banks want to have money held out that long. You want to make sure it's being redeveloped and you're able to pay off that loan as fast as possible. So that's certainly something, if you can streamline the permitting on that, it will go a long way.
Is there an average of how long it takes to go through the permitting process, or does it depend upon what permit, what project?
It completely depends on what permit and what project. I'm sure DEEP would be able to give you a breakdown of that, and they've been tremendous on opening up the transparency there, and I think that's certainly something with a conversation we could look at there. And because this might be fit for certain projects where there's a bigger backlog, and having a licensed third party help with clearing that backlog could be helpful, but there might be other permits that DEEP clears faster that there's no need for this.
Thank you, Peter. And then with regard to House Bill 5467, it's entitled An Office of Small Business Affairs. There is some resizing, reorging, and so forth that's going on amongst agencies, DECD one of them, so as to try to get rid of layers and to be more efficient. So we're not exactly wed to something known as an office. It is just the function that we are looking to stand up here.
Yes, it's just simply the function and having that available for the small to medium-sized business community. The legislature passes all different grants and programs all the time, and they're tremendous and oftentimes supported strongly by CBIA. But unless the businesses are aware of that and can utilize that, it's not making the impact that we want it to have. So by having this available, a small chamber of commerce, rather than reaching out to CBIA, we reach out to legislatures and we go through the budget and find what's available for them. There's a door open at DECD where you can go in there and they can point you in the right direction and utilize them as best as possible.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, Senator Rahman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Peter, nice to see you. Thank you for being here today with us and for your testimony. So this bill affairs to require DEEP to hire outside professionals to conduct the work. But DEEP already can hire the people. So can you tell us a little more about this?
Yeah, Senator, if I may. So this would be having DEEP create the framework for licensing these individuals. So they're not employees of DEEP, they're licensed by DEEP to issue permits to help clear a backlog. There can be backlogs that sometimes I've heard members say could be up to 18 months to hear back on certain permits. So rather than having that go, and DEEP staff is doing tremendous work in the jobs that they do, but this is giving DEEP the additional ability to have these people, these licensed professionals sign off on permits without costing deep funds to have them sign off on these permits. They would actually increase their funds because they would receive a fee from these permittees to be licensed, and increase their budget there. But it would not be hiring anybody. This would just be increasing the amount of capability that DEEP would be able to do as our state works to develop additional housing, increase energy production in our state. That's what it would really focused on doing. But I appreciate that question. Thank you.
No, thank you. So as for the housing, of course, we have the crazy housing shortage.
Yes. And thank
all
you for your
areas.
work on that in P&D.
Yes,
It's
I'm working
tremendous
on
work.
it. Talk about the trans-oriented housing, workforce housing, supporting housing, affordable housing, housing shortage all areas. Am I right? Anything help to create more housing, I'm go for with this. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Further comments from, yes, Representative Buckby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm making up some time for others I've missed this year here. And Pete, thanks for your testimony. My concern when you talk about some of these, I have to ask if you're familiar with the issues with Skynet and Cyberdyne systems.
I am, yes.
Yeah. Do you think that would be a concern?
No, I do not. I'm sorry. No, I do not think it would be a grave concern.
For those who don't know, that's our Terminator reference we were looking for. That was the company that made the Terminator. So
I do volunteer to be involved if there is a defense needed. I think CBI is well trained for that.
that's good. I think it's a great idea, and I think this whole thing is great. I think the fact that the qualified professionals is the biggest piece of this. They're qualified as third party to come in and help with those permit decisions. My concern is and again, Pennsylvania is a great example. Pennsylvania is doing great with energy as well, where we're not necessarily, right? So I think that's the piece that I'm concerned about in DEEP being able to grant that, even though it's not. It looks like it's really just permit review and not necessarily approval because of this. But I think that's the other part that was kind of left out of what we discussed is the expertise of those third-party people that might be from other states they can bring to us as well. Have you gone through some of that with, you talked about Pennsylvania, that's why I just bring that one up, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all that's really doing well in development.
Yeah, to give you an example of that, we actually have the Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce. There, people who help pass this legislation there is going to come and talk to all of our membership, I believe, next week, who are interested in this Space at RE2 conference. And by all means, anyone in the committee is welcome to attend that to have a further conversation about what they've done there. And I think this is something we can look at. Qualified professionals is certainly something where it's a small and medium-sized businesses or another economic development option for them there. So whether it's an LEP or an engineering firm who has the understanding of this and can do that is something we're going to need to make sure there are people that are qualified to understand it. And I'm sure there's going to need to be deep training and licensing, and there'll also be audits and oversight by DEEP to make sure that there's no foul play here of any kind.
I think that's the part that, not to beat the same drum I've been beating apparently on the previous bill, but we need to be smart enough to know that as the government, we're not the smartest when it comes to some of these ideas. And DEEP, Mason, in all respect to DEEP, may not have the professionals with the experience that this has as well. So I think it's a great idea, a great concept, and I hope we can move forward without having any issues from Skynet with this at all. But thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you for that concern. Yes, Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete, so I get the idea regarding having someone to expedite the permitting process. For me, it's not only the environmental permitting that can take a while to go through, but also you need permitting to have a stoplight at an intersection or to enter the property, whatever it may be. So how does that play out with the DEEP, I guess, individual that's going to take the lead on the permitting? Would that be included in this?
Senator, I think that is a fantastic example, and I think that's something CBI would welcome the committee amending this legislation to examine whether it's available at a municipal level or DOT projects as well, whether it's a stoplight or certain towns don't have a lot of building inspectors, especially impacting our small towns to impact development, whether it's housing or just development across the town. So if that's something that a town could license, or there's a licensing process through whether it's DCP or through DEEP, however it may have you, where those professionals could then issue the permit on the behalf or review the permit to help save some time and some costs for the towns in doing so, absolutely something we would be supportive of.
So I would assume that this person that's gonna be in charge of the permitting, is he gonna be reviewing the plans that's submitted by, let's say, for a 400-unit elderly complex, you know, in a rural area? Maybe, you know, what are you envisioning in this person?
Well, I think we'd
handling?
have to look at the framework with what DEEP would want under the authority there, but I think it's something where nothing would be changed from a typical permitting process, where everything would have to be submitted the same way. In our point of view, we wouldn't want any shortcuts to be cut at any level. But I think that's something we'd have to work with DEEP on what exactly the framework they would want it to be, where it would be most effective, but also economically competitive for a business to go that route rather than just going simply through DEEP and waiting the timeline because of the unknowns. You want to make sure this is a definitive process that can be effective.
I guess, you know, I know from experience that you can get tied up in, you know, in a community, having someone who is knowledgeable about what's going on a local level for the permitting process, as well as the state requirements as well. And then also with current regulations, and those that are about to be changed, because you can get into a large enough scale development where the regulations are changed in the middle of the design, and now all of a sudden you present your development plans to the town, and all of a sudden, oh, by the way, you gotta change this because the state has just, you know, changed these regulations. And you've just lost 6 months, a year of planning this site and where the water's gonna go, how much acreage it's gonna require, only to find out after that you've got to change your plans. And now you're talking about not only loss of time, maybe, well, you're definitely going to lose some money, but also probably missing your market as well. So
Yeah,
there's a lot to this.
That loss, I thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that, Senator. And those lost time, those are the lost jobs that don't get created because of the delays in the permitting or what have you. Those are jobs that don't get to have, that don't get to come to a community. You know, houses that don't get built or developments that don't happen simply because of permitting delays. And once you have that delay, it goes a year, you have to go back to your lender and say it's going to be another year until you get your money back. They've already issued the funds. It becomes a difficult conversation there, and that's when our businesses have to make that decision. Am I investing here, or am I going to Harrisburg, where's the best or better investment for me to go where it can be efficient?
Thank you, Senator Martin. Further comments? Committee members? Yes, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Pete. My question is just like the cost associated with going to a third party in order to review these documents. Is there going to be an additional cost to the people that are coming forth as the developer that they would have to pay to this third party?
I would imagine so, as to make this appetizing towards DEEP and to the state. I think you would need to have somewhat of an increased fee because you're also having the training of these individuals to make sure they're licensed. But also you want to make it economically feasible for the licensing for the third party to be a business, right? It's not just going to be a pass-through cost. There needs to be some vig, for lack of a better word, on that line there.
And along those lines, so then you have these third parties that are going to be reviewing and approving, and just to follow up on Senator Martin's comments, if the regulations within that municipality change during the whole process, so these people that are being trained, it's going to be a constant, I think, continual training of these individuals, because they not only have to learn our state laws, but they're also going to have to learn the nuances in a municipality, because their regulations may be different than the state regulation.
Absolutely, and I think that's something where you never want to underestimate the private sector small businesses of our state, where they can certainly step up and handle anything. As long as they know it's coming, they're going to be able to understand any changes that are coming for them. Changes in regulations happen all the time for the small business community. They'll be able to adapt and function on a dime whenever they need to for this.
Good, thank you for that. And I mean, it's a great plan. I think it's a great way to kind of get things moving along, but I think it's going to be a big undertaking. So hopefully we can work through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Comments from other committee members? Seeing none. Thanks very much, Pete. Look forward to the continuation of this conversation.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And we'd like to now invite Gabriel Slaughter. Save the sound. Is Gabriel with us?
Hi, members of the committee. I'm testifying via Zoom. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yep, we hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit testimony. I submitted some written comments online, and I just wanted to touch on a few points that I raised there. We are speaking today in opposition to Senate Bill number 418. I had a couple concerns with this bill, which I wanted to flag for this committee, and also make some remarks in response to my colleague from CBIA. The first thing I would like to flag is that inviting third parties into the environmental permitting process risks inviting biased parties into the process. So this was a minor scandal, but I think a good example of this. In December of 2021, an environmental engineering firm called Burns and McDonnell entered into a contract with the Federal Energy Regulatory Committee to conduct a third-party environmental review of a section of a proposed gas pipeline project. And later on, the staffers at FERC discovered that Burns and McDonnell had actually entered into a contract with the project developer on another leg of the gas pipeline project, creating a conflict which meant that, that conclusions couldn't really be, well, there was a conflict of interest, which would have undermined any kind of conclusions that the environmental review produced by that firm would have put forward. And the other thing I would flag for this committee with regards to conflicts of interest is that the industry for environmental engineering has undergone pretty considerable consolidation over the past decade. So now, if what I was reading is correct, just 5 firms accounted for 51% of environmental and sustainability consulting market in May of 2025, and the top 10 firms accounted for 66% of that consulting market. So given their dominance, I think there's a real risk that existing firms will have pre-existing relationships with entities that will be submitting the permit applications. Which brings me to my second point, which is about the structure of, the proposed investment that the state is making. So I'm not familiar with the details of the SPEED program in Pennsylvania, but one concern I have with that program, just looking at that very quickly just now, is it seems to create a situation whereby the permittee is effectively paying the person who's going to review their permit application, which I think creates a little bit of a problem in terms of assuring robust environmental compliance. These are questions about the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the keeping our soils uncontaminated. These are very serious questions in some cases for major permits. And so I think that there is a kind of concern there that the permittee is effectively paying the person who's going to review their permit application. And, when I first read this bill, what I originally envisaged was that the state would be contracting out permit review to third parties. Now, from my limited experience, these types of contracts can be tremendously expensive. So in my written testimony, I attached a screenshot from the public contracting portal for the City of New York, where they recently entered into a into a contract with this big law firm called Oric, Harrington, and Sutcliffe LLP to set up an expedited RFP process. Now, Oric charges upwards of $1,000 an hour, and if Deep started paying outside lawyers, for example, to review permit applications, this could lead to, pretty considerable billing. As I'm sure everyone here is aware, most private practice lawyers charge upwards of $400 an hour, and that's just kind of your standard rate. And environmental engineers charge slightly less, but it's between $100 and $300 an hour. And if the state is in a position to make a decision about making an investment in increasing the state's capacity to process permits, I would urge the committee to instead direct that investment into expanding Deep's workforce, which would have additional benefits, namely increasing Deep's capacity to conduct environmental enforcement, something which the agency has in recent times, just like with permitting, not always had the capacity to double check that people are complying with their permit conditions and keeping the waters and air and land of Connecticut clean and safe for its inhabitants. And those are the points that I wanted to touch on today. Thank you very much for your time, and I would welcome any questions.
Gabriel, thank you so much for being with us and also for your work. You're a legal fellow, I see, with Save the Sound. And you mentioned that you weren't familiar with the Pennsylvania program. So anything that we are engaging in or considering is obviously going to have a total and complete vetting. The points that you raise are very legitimate, and they would be front and center in terms of any kind of an initiative. Now, we have had experience with our licensed engineer professionals, and it was referenced a little bit, previous speakers dealing with our environmental issues on the Transfer Act, going into a new model, which is the release-based, which really the rest of the country, other than one other state, had already engaged in. So it's a process that would have to be completely vetted, and of course the concern would be about having a very clean, maybe that's not the right word, but vetting, licensing process, and the department has really some experience in doing this, and we, as I point out, have done this successfully with the LEP program. So like any challenge that we have, and the challenge is moving these initiatives along, be they housing, be they urban renewal, repurposing, brownfields, and so forth. These are all parts of the chain. We will very carefully consider, and I thank you for your testimony. Are there comments from colleagues? Yes, Representative Meskers, followed by Representative Buckby.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your testimony. I understand your concerns about conflict of interest. I think it's important that the prescriptives and descriptives on how the individuals are licensed are going to rest solely with DEEP. So at that point, we're going to look at professionals. And if you think about this as not being mega projects like a gas pipeline, but they're going to be projects in construction, et cetera, to speed up the permitting process, the licensed individual is going to be have a career in making sure that he fulfills the prescriptives of DEEP and making sure that he's processing the issues on a timely basis. So it's not a question of someone who's going to be beholding to the industry, but someone who's worked out a good understanding of the regulatory framework and is able to counsel people and get the projects moving forward. So I think, I can understand your concern. I think we are addressing fundamentally a backlog from the lack of a Transfer Act, from a lack of permitting, to try to handle this in an expedited way with professionals and creating a professional class of licensed practitioners. So it's not finding a request, somebody to expedite a request for proposal. We've gotten through the entire process. We need to figure out the permitting. We need to make sure we have professionals on the ground to look at the aspects of remediation, or that it's residential construction. The state has been, if you look at the population, you look at our urban centers, the growth rates have not been that robust. We have opportunities in space. We have, I mentioned before, something on the order of 4,500 to 5,000 properties that are stuck in the Transfer Act. So we just want to streamline how things move through the system. We do need a functioning workforce and a capable workforce at DEEP, but the question of building for situational issues is why you would look at licensing. That's I think where I am conceptually. But thank you.
Thank you, Representative Meskers. Representative Buckby.
Tough to confuse the two of us, but thank you, Madam Chair. And oddly, I'm going to agree with Representative Meskers, which is a rare occasion to document as well. I do appreciate the testimony, and I also am concerned about safety and protection of every bit of it, from the sound, from DEEP having full control. This, to me, is strictly a recommendation. I just wanted to ask, Save the Sound has input on these things just as much as Sierra Club would or whatever outside organizations would, and I think having both sides, people from not government get involved, I think is fantastic. So I truly appreciate the concept. I just wanted to ask if you didn't feel maybe the bill provides further insight and more transparency by doing that might be bringing more to light for the project itself.
Well, thank you, Representative Buckby. From my reading of the bill, there isn't enough detail for me to answer that. I do appreciate Representative Mesker's points about this being to create a scheme for smaller, more local projects that are getting tied up in these permitting processes. And, in response to Representative Mesker's comment, I would say that seems much less concerning to me, and I imagine my colleagues as well. Representative Buckby, I would say that the transparency in permitting has been a perennial concern for us at Save the Sound. We have asked the agency before to digitize more elements of the permitting process and make applications more accessible, make the comments submitting comments more easy. But alone, this bill, I don't see provisions within it that would increase transparency. But that said, it's just a feasibility study. I don't think this would make it shift it one way or another. But we would welcome that, certainly.
I appreciate that answer, and frankly, that's what I think it was. Senator Harding had submitted that as well, that he'd like to see more transparency put into this as an amendment, that maybe we can consider that piece going forward. I think that would connect the dots for more people to be able to put this bill to better use in general. So I appreciate the comments. I think that's some common ground we can find across the board. That works for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Buckby. And truly, the transparency of any kind of project, but in particularly something like this, would be paramount. And I also just want to go back and reference our experience with the LEP program, where those who were licensed to participate in this program viewed and actually to a person would identify the fact that their employer was not the permittee. It was the agency, DEEP in this instance. Further comments? Yes, Senator Rahman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I want to echo with my colleagues. Anytime third party involved, and always better outcome. and there is no doubt about it. This is my understanding. I know you mentioned third party. You have the risk giving, and but this is my personal opinion. I think the better outcome, third party involved, and want to ask you. You said a long run will cost more. Can you explain a little bit deeper about this? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rahman. And I say this without a complete understanding of the licensed environmental professional scheme that's currently in place. I have to confess that. But I assumed reading this bill that the proposal that was being put forward was for DEEP to enter into contracts with third parties, kind of along the style of the FERC story that I alluded to earlier, to conduct third-party environmental reviews. So, for example, hiring law firms, hiring engineering firms to conduct reviews of environmental permits. And as you guys may know, these applications are sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of pages long, and they involve difficult engineering and legal issues in some cases, and often require engineers or lawyers to make evaluations. And that's just to say, engineers and lawyers are often expensive, particularly when they work for private firms. And as I pointed to with the New York City contract, they are paying a law firm well over $1,000 an hour to create an expedited RFP process. And I personally don't think that's a great use of the city's resources, and I don't think that Connecticut should be taking steps towards implementing that kind of program. I don't, again, have enough knowledge about the LEP scheme to have a response to that framework, I'm afraid. But I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Still I think a third party involved is more negotiation, going to take place, and also will build more public trust. Thank you for your testimony. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rahman. Further comments from colleagues, committee members? Seeing none, once again, Gabriel, thank you for being with us today and for your written testimony. I'd like to now invite Bianca Bellin. She's remote. Is Bianca with us? Yes.
I am.
And good morning to you.
Good afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for the correction. It goes so fast. You have the floor.
All right. Senator Hartley, Representative Meskers, Senator Martin, Representative Aniskovich, and members of the Commerce Committee. My name is Bianca Bieland, and I live in New Hartford and work as an environmental analyst at the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP. I'm also a member and steward of CSEA SEIU Local 2001 in the state's P4 bargaining unit. I thank you for the opportunity to testify in opposition of legislation that would adversely impact the integrity of the various permit review processes at DEEP. Hopefully, perhaps not at this point, but you will hopefully soon have an opportunity to hear from Commissioner Dykes about the goals and achievements of DEEP's 20x26 initiative. Please do not undervalue the incredible effort that the hundreds of state employees at DEEP have put in to make real positive change to the permit review processes across multiple bureaus and divisions. We have worked hard to reduce the backlog of permit applications, but it's important to keep in mind that, at least for the environmental quality branch of DEEP, approximately 50% of the staff have been with DEEP for 5 years or less. Many of us are quick learners, and we strive to be as efficient as possible, but just like many professional scientists and engineers in the private sector, we are continually learning. Part of this learning is staying on top of ever-changing federal statutes. We're typically the first folks that the public reaches out to understand permitting requirements. We do our best to provide permit history and eligibility information as quickly and transparently as possible. State employees, including those of us that work at DEEP, must follow the Connecticut Code of Ethics and complete annual training. Third parties, such as consultants, often help fill out our applications on behalf of their clients, applicants. However, consultants are ultimately beholden to their clients' financial and other personal interests. Unfortunately, those interests do not always align with what's best for the health of the environment and the public trust. In my experience, delays in permit processing often are a result of insufficient applications, meaning that they're missing key components that may take months to complete. These were often consultations that require a specialized deep scientist to take a look at the proposed project and let the applicant and the deep analyst or engineer know if adverse impacts may occur as a result of the project and what best management practices should be implemented to avoid those impacts. We recommend pre-application meetings to ensure consultants and applicants are informed about the various program-specific application requirements and eligibility criteria. If the Commerce Committee is looking for ways to expedite processing of permits at DEEP, I would encourage you to start by financially supporting us. As I stated before, we're doing the best we can with what we have, but we need legislative support. There are a number of permitting staff that are working 35 hours a week that would eagerly jump at the opportunity to work 40 hours a week. Until that funding is secured, however, the P4 bargaining unit contract limits these hourly changes from 35 to 40 hours to staff that have been with the agency for 15 years or more. I am concerned that this bill would take resources away from DEEP staff that are already working hard with the allocations we do have for less pay than the private sector or even other New England states offer their state workers. I would encourage you to vote against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bianca, for being with us. And you did submit written testimony, did you?
I did. You just heard it.
No, you read it, but I want to make sure that other members who may be in other committees would have the benefit of this as well. Yeah, I first of all want to recognize the incredible, deep knowledge of the department staff, and tip our hats to them. And I would say that, you know, we worked very closely in the last iteration, last session, with this transition from the Transfer Act to the release-based model, and we had a chance to really work closely with multiple layers of DEEP staff, and indeed they were professional, knowledgeable, and so dedicated. But you mentioned that what percent, I missed the percent, of staff are there 5 years or less?
I believe this came from an employee survey, so definitely if you need more information on that statistic, I would definitely reach out to Commissioner Dykes' team. But I was told that 50% of the environmental quality branch has been with DEEP for 5 years or less. I started in 2020 myself.
No, I have personally noticed, you know, a lot of changes with regard to staff that, you know, we have worked with, and some of them actually have left, and now they're on the other side of that velvet rope up here. But I'm very grateful, and you probably are aware that we did increase staffing with regard to this transition to the release-based model, and we, you know, recognize the great resource that we have there in the department. Are there comments or questions from my colleagues? Yes, Senator Rahman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. You mentioned about backlogged. DEEP work hard to reduce the backlog permit application. Can you bring us there a little bit?
Yep. So again, as I mentioned, I truly hope that you're able to read Commissioner Dykes' testimony. I have a feeling she'll probably discuss the 20 by 26 initiative that originally was 20 by 20, but it is now 20 by 26. But there have been a number of improvements to permit processing programs kind of across the department. So I personally am in the Water Bureau. So I am familiar with the remediation program, but I am not in the remediation program. But again, across the department, you know, myself included, we are doing our best to reach out to applicants. Again, at least in my division, in my bureau, we're trying to reach out to applicants within the first 30 days. Say, hi, I'm, you know, the permit analyst assigned to your application. I'm reviewing it for sufficiency right now. I will get back to you as soon, you know, as I can with, you know, what your application might be missing. But, you know, part of that process is if we find that an application is grossly insufficient, they're missing multiple key components, we're saying we have to reject this due to insufficiency. Please try again. We're not trying to hold up these applications for months and months and months, hoping that, you know, they get us these components. And that we have seen it has improved the quality of applications that we're receiving, because the applicants, the consultants understand that if we receive an insufficient application, we're not going to be sitting on it for months. They're getting a more quicker turnaround.
So you think if it's third party involved, it's going to slow down the process?
So in my experience, my professional experience with the types of permits that I process, we coordinate with consultants on an everyday basis. So I want to acknowledge that consultants have, at least in my permitting programs, consultants have a place, and that's helping the general public, that's helping, homeowners fill out these applications and, communicate with us and then communicate to their clients, what they need to provide us, if anything else. I personally don't feel that consultants should be doing the work that Deep staff are doing, because again, like I mentioned, we're taking the ethics trainings, right? So our clients are the taxpayers of Connecticut. So we are doing our review for the health and safety of the environment, for the best interest of the public trust, capital P, capital T there. So I would just hazard the committee against putting too much responsibility on licensed environmental professionals, which again have a place, absolutely. But the environmental review should really stay with the folks who are hired essentially by the people of Connecticut.
Awesome, thank you. Well explained, and back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Bianca, if you could just kind of walk us through the process. So you said the application comes in, and within 30 days, you respond to say that you've been in receipt of it. Kind of give us the next steps.
Right. So again, I can only really speak to the permitting programs that I handle. So that's
water, right? You said water.
Water, structures, dredging and fill, certificates of permission, that realm, inland wetlands for state agencies. So other permit programs may have slightly different processes right now. But in my experience, we are aiming to, again, reach out to the applicant and their consultant, if applicable, to let them know, hi, my name is Bianca Bieland. I've been assigned your application. I am conducting a sufficiency review. I'll let you know as soon as I can with, if there's anything missing. But if there's nothing missing, then I'll move on to my technical review. And during that phase of the review, we're looking at the proposed project. We're looking at the Deep Wildlife Natural Diversity Database consultation, if that's applicable, if they're in an NDDB polygon, blob, zone, we refer to it in different ways, but if they could potentially impact state listed species, we're looking at that consultation to see what Deep Wildlife has suggested for best management practices to avoid adverse impacts. We're looking at the deep fisheries consultation. Did fisheries biologists suggest time of year restrictions for pile driving to avoid impacts to migratory fish? We're looking at, if it's a dredging project, we're looking at the coordination that had to happen between our remediation division and the Army Corps of Engineers. So we're really looking at all these consultations. We're looking at, an alternatives analysis if one was provided, to really understand what potential impacts a project could have on the environment, on the public trust. And so once we're through with the technical review and ensuring that the proposed project is also not going against statutes, regulations such as like the Coastal Management Act, then we move forward with if it's an individual permit process like a structures, dredging and fill permit, with a notice of tentative determination to usually approve, but in some cases deny. And then that triggers the 30-40 days if it's a tidal wetlands application, public notice period. And that comment period that I know was referenced earlier, the public comment period, that's when we have 30 to 40 days to receive comments from the public, from the applicant in some cases, and potentially make changes to the draft license. once the comment period is up, the comments have been responded to, any changes that need to be made to the license are made, then it gets sent up the chain of command for final approval and signature. So we do have different timelines for the different permit programs. Again, I can only really speak to the ones that I'm working on in my section. But we have, certificates of permission that we are trying to process within 45 to 90 days, depending on if we need more information or not. Structures, dredging, and fill, I think it's within 180 days. And then sometimes when we have water quality certificates, individual, where we have coordination with the Army Corps, that could be up to a year. But we are trying our best to process these permits as soon as possible, as efficiently as possible, because we understand, as members of the public in our private lives, that it's not fair to be waiting on the state for, the license. So we do our best to process these as efficiently as possible.
Thank you for walking us through that, Bianca. Yeah, no, and I understand it's no cookie cutter, and it is, it's an art and a science in terms of doing the due diligence that's necessary. Your comments and your presence here today are greatly appreciated. Are there comments from colleagues? Yes, Representative Meskers.
I want to thank you for your testimony. I think your earnestness resonates. I understand your concerns. I guess what I'm trying to balance between the concerns and the permitting process is the functionality of the permits, the license of the opportunity for a third-party licensee to work with the state, to be approved and certified on a regular basis by the state, and the concerns I have in terms of expertise. I want to see the department build its expertise, no problem about that. Maybe elevate the employment if with third parties we look at an elevation of the employment levels of the people inside the department. And where I sit in concern, with concern, whether it be building, whether it be remediation, which in many cases becomes certification that the topsoil has been removed to a lined vinyl pit somewhere because it's toxic. What I want to see is that we can speed up that process, not because I'm not cognizant of the public trust, but the public trust as a second component, which is the externality in the costs of the lack of economic development. So the balance is twofold. It's a cleaner environment, more environmentally friendly environment, but a productive environment. And those are the concerns we wrestle with, obviously, on commerce, where the impact of no development is devastating in many communities. So the question becomes, is there a better way to move that forward? I understand, your comment about more employment at the department is one way to address that. I think there are multiple ways, so I'm just trying to figure out how we balance that. And having worked, fairly assiduously with DEEP on the Transfer Act or the Release-Based Act, I think there are other models to look at, and that's why I think it's worth considering. But I appreciate, I heard you loud and clear, so I appreciate the commentary.
Thank you, Representative Meskers, for the comments from colleagues. Again, very appreciate your participation, attendance today, Bianca, and by the way, love that background. Okay, thank you very much, and if there is no one else signed up, Madam Clerk, for today's hearing, then you have comment? Representative, Senator Rahman. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any comment, anything. I just want to say, Terminal 1, I will be back for Terminal 2. Thank you, Madam Chair. I gotta go now.
And thank you, Senator, much appreciated. And so, for purposes of attendance, Madam Clerk, are we holding open till 2 o'clock? All right, so we will be open for purposes of attendance till 2 o'clock. Thank you, and best. We haven't said those words.
So we'll be notifying you going forward at the next meeting. It's still pending.
What? Your sound is on. Okay, you're muted. Let me update the comment. Between what? I don't know, it's doing that wonky thing again where it doesn't show me anything.
She will be in one quick
Can I
second.
say it?
Hold on. Thanks, bye.
Hello, Senator Summers. I didn't take my mask off.
Can she hear you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm gonna
Thanks.
mark you as present.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, we're
All right.
closed out now. At 2, close down the meeting and you're good to go.
I mean,